Hey everybody, we have a really good episode for you today. After we recorded, we had some developments. I was kind of brainstorming some stuff with people on Discord and thinking about different ticketing structures and stuff. What happens after the original 222 tickets are sold, and we've been talking about getting the gift bags together and everything else. And just because I don't want to give you, I want to give you guys a heads up. So those of you that have been waiting and considering the 222, a heads up on one of the things that you'll get. There's going to be a lot of surprises, but one of the things that you will be getting in the 222 Club, if you go to mindunderpod.com and check out the Campout, September 9th through 11th, 8th if you're a Patreon member, and camping until the 12th. One of the things that you will get is a custom Lost Sailor Design keychain. Lost Sailor Design is an amazing leather worker who I've worked with for years. If you came to like my Good Trip tour or anything, you would have seen I had his stuff on display. I've bought like purses as gifts for past girlfriends and things like that from him, and all sorts of belts and things. His stuff's incredible. And so it's just a keychain, right? Who cares about just a keychain? Well, this is a special one. This is your little token to show us that you were one of the original 222. That's going to guarantee you more hugs from me. But if you want more tangible things other than like, hey, if you're an original 222 and I'm performing in your area, hit me up. Maybe I have some extra comps or something like that I can give to our OG 222. And you'll have that little token 5 years from now when you come back to the Mum Campout. Everyone will know you're one of the OGs. But here's some tangible stuff. We're doing a raffle. So each one of those from 1 to 222 is marked in the order that they are bought and signed by Ramin and I, and we're having a raffle. So we'll pick a number 1 through 222, and we'll have some merch giveaways and some other fun stuff that we're planning. But we're going to have a grand prize of being an honorary lunatic, meaning you get one of 3 existing custom Mind Under Matter straight jackets. So these are 3 of a kind thing. They're all unique, and Banana's been dyeing them. We're adding some logos and stuff to them soon. And so not only that, but we also have been figuring out how to, like when we have like say a pig roast where we don't have enough to potentially feed everyone in the whole festival or whatever, we're going to have special kind of VIP events for those 222 keychain holders. So you'll need that to get access, including an area, a mystery area. It's not even on the map, but it should be. And it has a limited air. We just want it to be a surprise, but there's limited space there. And the 222 will have privileged access to that area. So if there's a line or whatever, you go right to the front of it. So go to mindunderpod.com, check out, become one of the 222. And you're also just helping us plan more. So the sooner you get those, the sooner we're able to like, okay, now we can put a deposit on this or get this bigger band or add these fun decorations or whatever, because budgeting for a festival is a tricky thing. So it also helps us out in terms of preparing a better festival for you. So it helps you, helps us, and lots more info on other things related to the festival coming soon. Enjoy today's episode.
Never would I ever be a man to lie to you. So just believe me. There's a better be the place and time in which you lost yourself completely to this music that will soothe you and still punish you discreetly. We're for your entertainment. We don't cater to the sleepy. We out here treading the fine line between the freaky out and sleazy. We all shake it, 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 shake it.
Zippity zippity zip bamboo. Welcome to Mind Under Matter, everybody.
Feels good, doesn't it? Feels good to start zipping. Doesn't feel good to say hello and welcome and but if you say zippity bim bam boom, then you're feeling good all over.
If you're watching on video, rewind this and look at the satisfaction on Ramin's face when I started sipping and sapping. It was an interesting look too, because it was satisfaction mixed with a like, I knew you'd get there one day. Good. I knew you would come around. Welcome to the show, everybody. On the intro, that was Julia. If you're looking for them on Spotify, Julia with a period at the end. That's the name of the band. It's Julia the Band on Instagram. They are one of the many bands coming to perform at the Mind Under Matter Campout. Found them. I was sorting through a bunch of local bands. Had a few people recommend them, followed them on Instagram, and then the drummer was like, "Oh wow, I can't believe you followed us. I was gonna come to your camp out and stuff anyway." And then I was like, "Do you want to play?" Great, because a lot of people have been talking about you. So yeah,
that makes us look good and them good.
Yeah, they're mummies already. They got their popular up and coming band that it seems like there's a pretty nice scene here in North Carolina, because I go around to a lot of different things and people will be like, "Well, who's playing at your band?" And I'll list off things, and people often know the bands that we're referencing, which I didn't know until I came here. So it's pretty awesome that we can get local up and comers, and they have a really great scene here and so much diversity and everything. And I'm also pumped that people liked Desert Honey so much. Got a lot of good feedback on Desert Honey, and that one feels special when you like discover something, you know, like when you turn someone on to a new thing. Or also because when you discover a thing, it's also like yours. That actually has to do with a little bit of some of the stuff we'll be talking about today, which is a lot of behavioral economics stuff. But there's an aspect about that of like, you got to be careful about how precious your ideas are or your attachments to things are, you know? So I'm always like, well, I like this. And I usually trust my intuition, but I also I have to understand that everyone has different tastes and everything else. And so I was very excited at the positive response that we've got.
It starts as, you know, recommending everything. Like when you're a kid, like, you got to check this out. This is great. And then after rejections and seeing that the expression on the person's face that you're playing the music for doesn't like it, then you like start to go back into your cave a little bit and never share anything again. And then you meet in the middle and go like, well, you might not be into it, but here, check this out maybe.
Yeah, and you figure out the right way to lead people into things too, and depending on what they like, and yeah, it's
Do you know what Young Guru does? Who is he's Jay-Z's producer and sound engineer, and I don't know, a bunch of other people. Jay-Z is the main one I remember, but he says he never tells someone, "Hey, listen to this." He just plays it, and then if the person reacts, that means it's good, and if they don't react, that means it ain't doing it. So you don't you don't prime the person like, "What do you think?" It's just happening. And he's done this. I think it's a story with Jay-Z where Jay-Z thought something was great, and then to prove him wrong, he just went outside and just played it for some people, and then they were like, "Yes, what is that? Stupid." And then Jay-Z like went back into the recording studio with his head down. Yo, what is that? That's whack.
So weird. Because as a comic, I mean, we do the same thing and we have jokes that are way too precious for us and everything. But also, there's some things that I'm like, well, I know this is funny. Doesn't really matter if this audience isn't digging it tonight. And then other times it's like, that's valuable feedback. Maybe I did use too many words there, or the connection isn't. You assume there's two mistakes that you can make. Is thinking that the audience is like not gonna get your reference, and then the other one is just assuming like, oh, everyone just knows the contents that are in my brain already, so I'll just blab like everyone knows this concept, and then it goes over people's heads and it's not their fault, and it's just you're missing a connection.
That is such a delicate balance of, because you can't just assume like, well, the audience is blank slate. I cannot reference any TV show or pop culture moment or a scientific discovery because they don't know any of that. And then you can't do it to where because if their brain was matched with you, nothing you said would be a surprise. It would just be like, yes, I also think that and thought of that joke. But it made me think of this moment in that Carlin documentary where towards the end he was just doing what he wanted to do, even if it was long rants about the military industrial complex or religion or whatever. And he said, I'm here for me, you're here for me, and no one's here for you. As he's just going through stuff in a notebook, but people really laughed at that line because you're like, oh, okay, I respect that commitment and authenticity to doing what you want.
Did you see Norm Macdonald's thing?
The new Netflix one?
Yeah.
I'll try it again. I couldn't because I was disappointed when I pressed play and it's him just recording it in front of a computer webcam. I'm like, no, I'm not in the mood for that. I'll do that in the background, but I'm not going to play that on the big screen. Like,
yeah, that made me like a little it sad. And then it also just was. It also was like, well, I'm glad I didn't stick a bunch of effort into virtual stand-up comedy shows like a lot of people did. I was like angry about it early on. I was very vocal on Twitter. Like, what are you? Nope. Use your creativity. Figure something else out. It's not virtual stand-up. That's not how this is going. This is not the end game. It's just not going to work out. We'll all be in space suits in the audience before virtual stand-up.
Now that I would see.
Like, yeah.
Especially with this new BA5 variant. Not to get into that, but just dating ourselves, or not dating ourselves. What is it? Not dating ourselves. Time stamping ourselves, solidifying this episode in this particular era. Like, oh, that episode came out when they just announced the BA5 variant before it wiped out half of humanity.
Right. Yeah. There's do you have any like BA9 goals? Like, where would you like to be in your life when BA9 rolls around? That's just how we think about things now.
I'd like to have 20% less brain fog. That's it.
My 5 variant plan is 5 variants from now. I would like to have this going on in my life. What a bizarre time. And it's boy, yeah. I hope they improve ventilation everywhere. And I'm not sure that they're going to, but maybe one country will. And then everyone else will start following suit. It'll just take so long to do, but so it's necessary. People don't want to wear masks. They also don't want to be dying and sick all of the time.
Can't Dyson invent something? Like Dyson vacuums, just make some little sphere that you can put in any building that like sucks the bad ventilation and then uses a vortex to... It's all about vortexes. Get a vortex in there and then it'll tornado it out into good air.
I think those HEPA filters do a pretty good job. They discovered that was a thing from hospitals because people would get sick in like other wings of a hospital from like a rare disease that someone had in, 200 yards away or whatever, different nurses, different doctors, everything. And I'm like, what the hell is going on here?
The more you hear about old medicine, the more you think like, wouldn't it have been better to just do none of it? Like the leeches, the not washing your hands, the ventilation going around. Like it seems like it would have been safer to just stay in your cabin. Not really. That's just a, you know, a
in many regards.
Bit,
but it's, I mean, it just, there were a lot of things. Vaccines came around pretty early, and those were good. Hand sanitation came around pretty early. Those were good. Then there was like, we'll do an episode sometime of just like horrifying mistakes that were made along the way. Like,
hey, you
want one quick one?
Yes.
I feel like maybe I've already talked about this, but just in case, there was, by the way, we're talking about behavioral economics at some point today, but we're doing our usual riffing.
Look at the cover. Look at the episode title. You lazy buttocks.
So there was this odd thing that happened with when sudden infant death syndrome first started being diagnosed. It's a thing that's always happened, but that's another thing that as medicine has progressed, new things become detected. And when new things become detected, people are like, where did this come from? Are doctors and scientists just making this thing or whatever? There's a lot of, and there's some merit to it, like the DSM and in therapy.
What's that?
It's the book of like every diagnosable like psychological ailment or
what's
whatever
it called?
else.
The disease science manual.
I don't know what DSM stands for.
Disease syndrome manual.
Statistical manual for mental disorders. DSM 5.
But what's the D?
Oh, sorry. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual for Mental Disorders.
Oh, now that'll put you to sleep. Put someone to sleep in 3 words. Easy. Diagnostical Statistical Manual. Like it's just brown. There's no pictures, not even on the cover. The text is small. Doesn't even smell good. Doesn't smell bad, but it doesn't smell good like a book should. A strictly technical, diagnostical, statistical manual.
Oh, we are not good at statistics. We don't take to them very well. It may be why AI takes over is just because of its indifference to statistics, and data are such an incredibly powerful tool, and we are just absolutely repulsed by it as social apes that had no use for such things. I mean, we do. That actually leads into what we're going to talk about today too. Go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, if AI takes over, it will be a murder-suicide, because I can see them taking over us, but it'll break down in like 4 minutes, if anything. I cannot see AI like just taking off and not having some update freeze, and you don't know why it froze, and you don't know why this software update led to that. So yeah, they'll take over, but they won't last long. So we can always take comfort in that if we're afraid of a robot takeover. Yeah,
we can take comfort that within a week of them driving humans into extinction, they'll have driven themselves into extinction as well. So that feels
easily
nice.
Yeah.
Easily. So, so here's a horror story. So there was like people didn't used to give bodies up for medical science. You know,
no cadavers.
People have their rituals and stuff. The idea seems creepy with them. We'll maybe mention the organ study again today. But so historically, it took a long time to get cadavers. Early grave robbers were like paid under the table by scientists and stuff way back in the day just so they could learn more shit. And so early cadavers were poor people, because poor people would sell their dead because they were desperate for money. And so the only infant cadavers that scientists were used to seeing were all poor, like impoverished from that upbringing. And they didn't think about that. So then when sudden infant death syndrome started being diagnosed, so now wealthy people were having, their children die, wanting to know what happened, wanting an autopsy. And they would look and be like, oh, well, if you see here, the thalamus is, I don't even remember exactly what the thalamus does, but the thalamus is enlarged in this baby. And so what causes this is an enlarged thalamus. And we also have this new technology called radiation, where we can like kill cells and shrink things. So we can, if you have enough money, we'll preemptively shrink your baby's thalamus, not knowing that the small thalamus they were used to seeing was a result of malnourishment. And so
every baby that they brought in got it. How many did it take, you think, before they caught on that every baby that got the treatment croaked?
I don't have that information for you. I don't know. I'm sure there's books upon books written about it. But it's
SIDS is terrifying.
Oh yeah.
Like, I mean, you just think of just and maybe it will be pinpointed what it is. And I know there's various different reasons to it, but I mean, the word is kind of like UFO, and that it's sudden. We don't really know why. We have theories as to why it happened, but it's sudden. Infant, that's your kid. Death, that's it, not being here anymore. And then syndrome, that means it's a medical. Yeah.
And it's also, I mean, can you imagine your kid dies from it and then you're like under investigation too at the exact same time for murdering your baby, which you did not do.
Oh,
that's also a thing that happens, because some people do shake their babies and such, which I wonder how long people have known. Like, I don't know how maybe it was like, yeah, sometimes you give it a good shake and it just shuts right up. And then
my dad shook me and I became a real man. Yeah.
And that's always the weirdest thing when people like, I was raised Catholic, didn't care for my upbringing, didn't care for being raised Catholic. I have friends that, I was in our version of Sunday school with and everything, that also don't, are, intelligent people with good jobs that also just, they don't go to church, or they didn't before they had kids or whatever. And then they have kids and they're like, well, which kids increases religiosity? Probably because it's increasing your unpredictability and control in the world, or need for a feeling of it. And so I've heard from a lot of people like, well, I turned out okay. Like, but that's not, like, you don't just give your child like traumas to overcome in the hopes that they will also turn out.
It's weird
okay.
Starting it later, but I mean, some people have it and some people don't, I guess, or they go through phases of it. I've never connected with one thing Jesus said. I'd love to. Not like that's okay. That's an exaggeration. I'm sure there's a quote. I'll be like, now that's a good quote or something. But when people that are really into Jesus and then they share the Bible quotes and stuff, and I'm trying really hard to connect to it, not from a really buy into it thing, but just from a motivational quote, spiritual quote
like
standard.
What does this mean?
Yeah, I don't connect to it. It's just not meant for me this life or yet. Maybe I'll be a 50-year-old Jesus person, but. It's like that Eddie Pepitone bit, like, raise your hand if you do not have access to God. I cannot access God. It's better with him yelling it and whatever words he used, but he just opens the set with that.
He's great. I got to watch his new special, newest. Here's what happened. I haven't really started booking. Most of the scientists that I've booked for the Campout so far are just friends of mine that were coming anyway. People that have been on Here We Are a bunch. Scientists I've been friends with for years. People that I know are awesome and comfortable in that situation, like Peter McGraw and Marty Hazelton, and Sophia's going to be there, and then I'm like putting out feelers for all of my past guests and getting a bunch of suggestions and going through all of them to find the best fits and what days. And it's a lot to coordinate, but there was one person that I knew that I wanted, Dan Ariely. And he was one of the first guests on my show, and he was a big get. I only got him just because a friend, Peter McGraw, was an old student of his and put me in touch and did it as a favor. And he was just so nice, even though I was like, you remember you were editing the Here We Are in the beginning. I was just so nervous in the beginning. It's still intimidating to this day, but it was especially intimidating when I was starting out, and I just like went for it anyway. But it was scary, and he was so gracious, and he's a best-selling author of 3 different books. Predictably Irrational, The Honest Truth About Dishonesty, and I can't even remember the list.
Doesn't he do cartoons or something too? Like a cartoon book?
Yeah, he likes working with various artists. I got a hold of him, and right away he wrote back and wants to come. He's so busy. He has like 15 million. His TED Talks have like 15 million views and stuff. That's back when that was a big number, especially with TED Talks. And
yeah, I remember when we used to send TED Talks to each other. Not like you and I specifically, but just like people. Like, I just saw a TED Talk about happiness. And now, I mean, sending anything to anyone now is a huge ask.
Share, like, and spread the word about this show, by the way, everybody.
Do it.
I'm asking you. And
I'm telling you.
So not only did he agree, but he was like, I would really like to, I've always wanted to be like accompanied by like some jazz musicians or something like that. Do you think you think you could work that out? And I was like, yeah, we can work that out for you.
Yeah.
So
who's the jazziest person we've got right now?
I don't know, because I just listen to our artists' albums and stuff. So I watched their live shows too, because I don't just, the studio can do a lot of things. So if someone sends me something and they just have like one studio track and that's it, and I can't see like live stuff and whatnot, I'm like, I can't take the chance. I don't know, even if this one song sounds good or whatever. And so I don't know, but I know there's this one band, Reliably Bad, that we're maybe getting, that they have they're pretty jazzy, but we have a lot of funk, and we're almost maxed out on psychedelic funk at the moment. I'm
predictable.
I'm carefully making sure that we mix it up a fair amount. Desert Honey is like the perfect vibe. I would like to get a little more stuff like that.
I'll play some Charles Mingus bass lines behind him. Worst case scenario.
That could be really fun if you did it. That would be really cool. I mean, he's about as big of a deal as they get in science. I mean, there's Yuval, and I'd say he's like bigger than Sapolsky in terms of,
he's like the Neil deGrasse Tyson of Israel, right?
Yeah. In terms of like behavioral economics type stuff, I I was like Daniel Kahneman early on, but he didn't do as many talks and get as popular, I don't think. But yeah, so I'm just excited to have him. And then I realized that we haven't really had a full behavioral economics episode, so I thought we could riff about it a little bit.
I don't think we've done any economics episodes.
I mean, I
We've
definitely throw in some stuff here and there for sure.
But not a full episode.
Not a full episode. And his story is really, really cool. It's got explosions in it, literally. Yeah. I don't know exactly what happened, but when he was like 16 years old, he was in some like sort of explosion or chemical explosion. And I don't know if it was a chemistry lab or you said some graduation. I forgot to look into what the details of it were.
I think it would be a chemistry lab, but the first Google results said at a graduation ceremony, which that's got to be some graduation ceremony. If any kind of explosion happened, whether it was terrorist or a demonstration or like a light works show going on behind him. Seems like it might have been his idea because he wants to perform with a jazz group behind him. Maybe he's like, can I get like a fire torch display like the one that got James Hetfield at the Metallica concert? Like, yes. Will you sign this non-liability waiver? He's like, irrationally, yes. And then he irrationally signs that. And that's how he exploded, right?
Something happened where he definitely almost died. He had horrific, like 3rd-degree burns over 70% of his body. He spent like 2 years in a hospital. So he's a teenager. He spent like 2 years in a hospital, and it was just horrific. It was 2 years of them having to like constantly rip bandages off of him and to like remove the dead skin. So to give you an idea, I think he's about 55 now. He still has regular surgeries. Like he's had a surgery this year. He has surgeries all of the time. If you look, he has like half of a beard, half of his face is like scarred up pretty bad and everything.
Yeah, at first I thought it was a goof. Like not the scars, of course, but at first, you know, from far away, you see the half beard and he's like, oh, he's trying to demonstrate the science of like facial hair versus not facial hair or something. And then you look a little closer and then you read into it, it's like, oh, no, he can't grow it on that side. Yeah. And then you go deeper and you're like, Jesus, that is some Darth Vader level suffering of.
It really is. He can't sign books if you come, unfortunately. I told him like maybe we could get a stamp made or something like that, but he could probably sign some tits.
I'll get some good ones going then.
I bet he can sign. I bet he can muster it for tits. Tits are so powerful. I mean, everyone knows that. Have you ever signed tits before? I've signed some tits. It's such a weird experience. Yeah. I guess it's not a weird experience. It's just like, okay, it always just feels like so. It feels like
no. I'm joking. It's the humor episode. No, wait, it's the behavioral economics episode. Well, I'm behaving in a certain way.
Non-consensual tit signing. Wow. I'm sure it's happened. So he leaves me voice notes when he emails and stuff. If he has to type more than like 2 sentences, he'll leave a voicemail instead. That's how he mostly communicates. He can't use his hands very well. Like to this day, he's still in rough shape. So he's in this predicament and it's just horrifying. It's just 2 years of, he's like eating out of a straw and stuff. And it took like over a year before he could try to walk a little bit. And it was like very, very difficult in the beginning. And he was always, so first of all, I'm probably butchering because it's been years since I've read some of his early books. Before this, I started I read 1.5 of his last 2 books in the last couple of years, and so anyhow, he he was like pleading with the nurses all of the time to like, can you just rip the bandages off? Can we like put it off later? Does it need to be done today? Does it, can you go slower? And they'd be like, no, it's better just to, as the old saying goes, you just rip the Band-Aid off just as fast as possible. And he was like pleading with it, and he has like no control over, this is just fucking horrifying. And that's part of what got him into science in the area of study that he started. So then he started studying. So then he's like, well, I need some job that's somewhat flexible, that like if I need to go in for surgery and stuff like that regularly, I can do. I need something that I don't need the use of my hands, and it can be like, an accommodating schedule. If I'm able to like work hard enough, like flexibly. And then he started studying pain perception. And then like some of his early work, he studied pain and figured out that those nurses were wrong.
Wait, you don't have to rip off the Band-Aid every day?
You don't have to rip it off like just fast. You don't need to go like, or rip it as fast as possible. And so
maybe they were trying to get more done during the day.
I think it was just, no, I don't think that was it. I think it was carrying nurses that this was just the practice that they were taught, and you just go as fast as possible and get it over with. And so
the old saying is wrong?
In certain circumstances, yeah. So there's things like this, this peak end rule that we've probably talked about on the show before. But we'll get the bear of repeating out.
Come back in there.
And can we take 1 second? Hold on 1 second. We're back.
I thought you were going to come back dressed as the bear of repeating.
No, but it reminded me that we got our first Standee.
Huge.
Yeah, it's
I haven't seen
big.
it with you.
Yeah, look at that.
I thought it was half that size.
Yeah, look, you'll get to take pictures with a bunch of stuff. If you are on YouTube or Spotify, check this out. When I took pictures with this, people thought on a camera, it looks like it's photoshopped. Almost everyone thought that this was photoshopped. And it's not. That's just how good it looks on camera. So you'll be able to come and take pictures with Ramin's art, and it'll look like you're standing next to one of his cartoons. It's going to be so awesome. Okay, so peak end rule. So this is about the psychology of pain, and intuitively we kind of think about pain in almost units, like how much pain did you experience in life? Well, I had 10 million gigahertz of pain or something like that,
Paintrons.
Paintrons, exactly. And so but it turns out that our remembering of both pain and pleasure is a lot more complicated than that, and the peak end rule is a really good example of this. So the idea with the peak end rule is that yes, people are taking their average experience of, say, coming to a campout or experiencing a surgery, whatever it may be, and averaging it out and then being like, oh, that was a 7 on the pain scale or 8 on the fun scale or whatever. But it's a lot more complicated than that. So they definitely are doing that, but they're also remembering the peak of the experience the most, like their favorite part of the show or their absolutely most horrifying part of the painful experience. And then they're also remembering the end of the experience more as well. And your brain's kind of adding the end and the peak together. And that's dramatically influencing your memory and perception of how that experience was. So
averaging it? it takes the peak part and then the end, and then like it meets in the middle, takes the mean of that.
Yeah, kind of. So here's a really good example that they figured out. So we're maybe going to have not maybe, we are going to have ice baths at the Campout for people that are into that. I'm not sold on the ice bath thing. I'll do it because I like things for like a dare. I don't think that I'm going to.
You don't believe in cold shock proteins or stuff like that?
I would like to interview someone and know more about it. Anytime I hear the word telomere, a red flag goes off in my mind. If someone talks about telomeres, I'm like, I bet they're peddling snake oil. There's a few science words like that. Quantum physics, telomeres, and these days mirror neurons which mirror neurons are some of my favorite things to talk about, and they are real and they are fascinating. The way in which our brain like mimics other people's behavior, but they're just oversold. And it's the same thing with telomeres. It's not that telomeres aren't like awesome and exciting. Telomeres are they're like little shoelace things in DNA. And as your DNA replicates, the ends of them kind of become frayed over time. So if we could just get these things to stop fraying, we could live forever.
Oh, no.
And oh no.
I mean, I don't know much about it, but I mean, I'm going to just go ahead and take the opposite bet. Not that I do it because it's uncomfortable, but the Wim Hof guy, it seems like they are studying him, and he has done some crazy things with the like immersing yourself in the cold and the breathing techniques. And who knows if it's the cold or if it's the fact that the cold makes you do the breathing technique that that gives you the whatever paragraph after that helps sell the point more. But it feels like there's something to it.
Yeah, that and his yelling. I mean, there's so
you have to use the brain to activate the endocrine system.
I mean, so
that's it.
So it's interesting that he talks about the endocrine system too, because that's
endocrine.
That's endocrine system. So stress response. So what did he inject himself with that people are like, oh, he injected himself with like botulism or some sort of thing.
And I don't know that story.
And then he breathed a bunch and then it like didn't do anything. But whatever they injected him with was something that causes an autoimmune response, which would be different if it like attacked your immune system and you overcame it. That would be more impressive to me. But if you did something that like gives you an allergic response and then you just stress yourself out, that delegates energy away from your immune system and because you're like suffocating yourself or whatever else, that's not as impressive to me. Not that autoimmune diseases and disorders aren't like horrible and we shouldn't be doing things for them, but it's one thing to be like, see, you can inject yourself with this thing and it works for that, so you can work your way through COVID or whatever. Like, oh no, that's the opposite. If what it's
those
doing
claims
is
get a little far,
down your so I don't know. I mean,
but what do you think that the ice bath doesn't do? Because I don't even know what I think it does, other than after you do a very uncomfortable thing like that, you feel good afterwards. That's all I know.
I mean, I think that's a big part of it. I think that it's a really salient experience that, you get to have this mental, I don't know. I'm interested in trying it, and I'm skeptical of claims about it. But
what's one of the claims? Like it helps your immune system or it gives you virality or something?
When I see the claims about it, it just sounds like a bunch of science jargon that doesn't make sense, and like none of the concepts make sense to me. It just sounds like fancy words being thrown out. Maybe that's what I sound like to people, or maybe that's what scientists sound like to people generally. But I talk to a lot of scientists and they usually like say things in a way like, oh, I see what you mean there, and I understand the point. And if I don't know a word, I ask about it. Whereas when I hear about ice bath claims, I'm like, wait, what are all these words? This sounds like a lot of word salad flying at me in a hurry. And
but
like,
you don't
why
remember
can't this
any of
be
the claims?
broken down? I've never looked into ice baths that much. I'm being unfair toward ice baths.
Yeah,
We'll have ice baths at the...
Because it's not like they're selling like a little, pills of the ice bath or something. It seems like anyone can really take an ice bath. So it doesn't seem like that's where the money is. Like, I'm going to be the ice bath peddler. That's why it seems like, no, there's probably something to it. But also, like you said, it might just be the super salient experience that afterwards you're like, oh, I feel great because I feel alive now because I did something difficult and uncomfortable.
I mean, people sell like new ways of doing to-do lists or whatever else. Like we do too. We explore various like life and mental hacks all of the time that aren't like directly profitable for us, but we are hoping that we're, gaining an audience and following from having, this very special knowledge of this thing that's going to help people's lives in this or that way. And so I wouldn't say that anyone necessarily has like malintent in going for the ice bath thing, but I will say that it just has all of the features of a perfect placebo effect. It's very intense. You're putting yourself through a whole thing. Your consciousness is immediately going to be like very susceptible to like, oh yeah, it does this and that. And like, well, I wouldn't have just went through like 5 minutes of horrific suffering if it wasn't good for me. Would I? No, I'm a smart, rational person, and I wouldn't have done something stupid like that. So it just has all the perfect features of a placebo effect. But the hell, if it invigorates you or whatever else, oh my God, if you can get invigorated in life in any way, shape, or form, fucking ride that wave. I don't care what it takes, really.
Murder excluded. Anything else, though, no matter how unethical, do it. What if at the Campout we had an ice bath that one is labeled like does not work, and then the other one's like this one makes you like you'll feel like Joe Rogan when he was 23.
So listen to this. He's only gotten stronger, by the way, Ramin.
Okay, you'll feel like 52. Joe Rogan when he's 65 or whatever he is. You will literally become the Joe Rogan experience, not even the human. You will become the #1 podcast in the world if you get into this ice bath. And if you get into this other one, you'll be like, it'll be like starting your own podcast. No one will hear.
I wish people didn't share the nipple ice bath pictures of Joe. Like, I hate that shit when it's like, I don't know. People are always like, look at that. Like, there's a still shot of Rogan getting out of an ice bath, and his nipples are just like insane. They're insane. And,
maybe that's the claim.
Like,
maybe that's the claim. We'll do that.
I don't care what someone's nipples are like. Why are we? It's so dumb when we just take a still shot of someone and be like, haha, look at this person. Look at their nipples. You would trust. Well, no, either you trust them because the contents of what they're saying has value, or you don't trust them because they're being manipulative or giving bad information or whatever else. We don't evaluate people based on a shot of their cold nipples. That's not how we should be navigating life. But it seems
doesn't sound like a nice society to me, but I guess some other country can do that. I want to live in Niptopia. I have a dream where you're judged not by the contents of your character, but by the hardness of your nipples after an ice bath. I don't even know what photo you're talking about, which is good. I'm glad that I'm not getting that recommendation. Just Google right now.
Joe Rogan's nips. Yeah, it's a meme. So anyhow, this is a perfect lead into this. So here's the study. They had people put their hand in a bucket of ice water for like, I think a minute, maybe it was two. I think it was 2 minutes. Let's say it was 2 minutes. I'm probably wrong. Let's just say it was 2 minutes. So that's a long time to have your arm in a bucket of ice water, which we'll find out at the Campout. And then, and they had another condition where they had people put their arm in and they keep it in for 2 minutes. They don't have like a countdown time. They just tell them when they're done. But then at the end of 2 minutes, they, without telling them, they pump a little bit of warm water in. It's not enough to make it not uncomfortable. It's still a painful experience, but it's not as painful as it was that original 2 minutes. So you're either getting 2 minutes and then stop, or 2 minutes and then another 30 seconds of less painful pain. So if pain was measured in units, you'd be like, well, you take the 2 minutes of pain. The other condition is just 30 more seconds of pain, even if it's less pain. But that's when they asked people what they preferred. Then they had people do it like the two different ones and asked them which was better. And they'd randomize that they'd do one first and then the other second and switch it around and whatnot. They would reliably pick the one where they pumped in the warm water at the end. So the end of it was just less uncomfortable. And that remembering of the end of that made it that much less painful in people's remembering of that experience. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that seems obvious though. Am I missing something here? I thought you were going to go the other way, where people were going to pick the pure cold one more often because there wasn't a thing that changed, and maybe the change is what. But you're saying people reliably pick the one that gets easy at the end.
Yeah, but it's easy at the end, but it's an additional 30 more seconds of pain.
Oh, yeah. Okay, the extra 30 seconds.
So it's just extra pain that you're getting. Like you could either just take your hand out. Like if they asked you, hey, do you want to take your hand out now? Or do you want to have a little warm water and it's still painful? Like you would consciously just take your hand out.
That's would you rather have like 2 years in a federal penitentiary or 2 years in a federal penitentiary and then an additional 6 months in a local minimum security facility?
Exactly.
Like, yeah, give me the wean off. No cold turkey. Give me the wean off of it.
So then, and I think this is Daniel Kahneman's work, who I referenced earlier, and he was kind of like the founding father. Him and Tversky, don't rely on me for names, you know that. But the famous book, Thinking Fast and Slow. We should do a whole episode on that book one of these days. It's absolutely wonderful and really good intro into these sorts of concepts. But he
what's think slow? I know think fast is when you throw like an orange at someone's head, but think slow.
It's broken down into they break it down into, so this is years and years ago. These guys, they won a Nobel Prize for economics, and they weren't economists. They were psychologists that proved that economics were wrong. Economists were wrong. That economists thought like, oh, well, if we just give people the logical way to spend money, they'll adapt that logical thing. If you just spell out for them, hey, save this much money each week, and then you'll have a nice retirement, and here's how much you have. And they'll just know and they'll do it. And if they don't, what the hell is wrong with this person? And so just stupid. No one behaves that way. And so they started looking at that and changed the entire field of economics from outside of economics. And Daniel Kahneman's still alive. Maybe I'll get him on the show sometime. Blast. But he is. Yeah.
You see the house right next to him is like smoldering, like my missile missed.
I should have never gave you the controls of the space station. It's fucking gone.
It's not like I didn't say
head.
what I was going to do with it.
You keep on shooting lasers at homes, like for very few reasons. I just like name a house and you're just so trigger happy with that Death Star device that we made for funsies. He did this. So back at this time that he was working on this, prostate exams were a horrifically uncomfortable thing. My understanding, although I haven't had one, and I think I should. I think I'm
feeling
supposed
swollen?
to. No. I think I'm just the age that you're supposed to start.
40s when you need the finger up there.
I don't know. I don't want to look
I
into it.
almost did on radio. On KLBJ, they had a prostologist or whatever, the guy that does that. And Dale and Bob and Matt were going to get one. And then they just emailed me like at night, like, hey, do you want to come on the show tomorrow and get a prostate exam? I said, I'd love to. I've never gotten a prostate exam. And then they like ran out of time. They didn't get to do mine. I was really disappointed. I'd promoted it and everything. I was very proud. I'm like, I'm this crazy goofy guy. I'm going to go get a prostate exam live on the air. And then they ran out of time and I went home just completely unexamined.
And the doctor didn't just give you a free one for coming in and doing the whole thing. They just like, that's all the time that we have. Like you came all the way down. I feel like the doctor should have like, hey, if you want a prostate exam, I'll just give you one quick. You came out of your way to do this skit.
Yeah.
It didn't work out, but it's still something healthy. So I guess there was like a device used way back when, and it was more intrusive and a lot more painful. And
it goes into your throat. And then they're like, oh, the ass.
And so the more uncomfortable a prostate exam is, the more reluctant guys are going, myself included, are going to be to get them, the more at risk you're potentially putting yourself. Although I guess there's like been back and forth about how necessary they are at certain ages. They've been like pushing back the age of late.
Frank Zappa got examined 3 times for it and they didn't catch it. And then like when it was swollen to the size of a grapefruit or something, then they caught it. That's how he died. Prostate cancer.
Jiminy crickets. Mm-hmm. So they applied that same logic. First what they did was they figured out prostate exams. They figured out what was, they like, do you go really fast and get it over quick? Do you go really slow and so it's painful but it lasts longer? And then they found that people preferred the Goldilocks zone.
Lube. Lube was the Goldilocks zone. Not fast or slow.
Just the whatever the non-dry version is. So then once they had that, then they got some people in, and I don't know if they just had doctors try this or what. There's been a lot of different things through the years where they're like, we don't care if it's good. You just can't do it anymore. It's not ethical. Like there used to be, Obaslep was something you could it's placebo backwards, and you could prescribe it to people, and it as a doctor, and it would work wonders. Like
that's so cool. I want Obaslep.
Yeah. And it worked wonders for people because life is much about the placebo, finding a placebo that works for you, and placebos are incredibly effective. And like you said, there's so many complications with actually doing things in hospitals and whatnot. And that's true to this day. But it's
wrong because it's lying, unlike many other things.
Yeah. So they've deemed it to be unethical. Which,
funk that.
I mean, you can't take the placebo out of the doctor's office anyway. That means like removing the lab coat and changing the set.
Is it because
everything
it's too
about a
obvious?
hospital is like.
Would like Pig Latin be okay? Or a C-blow play?
I mean, I think he just can't charge people for a capsule full of nothing, you know?
I mean, I would pay for the word Osablay or whatever it is. What is it?
I'm not sure I'm saying it right. Give it a shot.
Obisled. Oh, I need Zach Sherwin here to like spell it out with my finger. Oblexed. Uncle Blep. Yeah, I want just if you wrote down the word Uncle Blep and signed it with a doctor's signature, I don't even need the pill. I would just look at that.
Yeah. So then they figured out that they should try just leaving the device in after the prostate exam is over. Just leave it in for just another minute, just unnecessarily, but don't like move it about. Then moving it's where all the pain is, but it's still uncomfortable to have the thing in your ass.
Is it the ass that's the pain? Because the prostate probably feels good. Unless it's like cold and metallic or something.
I think it's uncomfortable no matter what. Yeah, I don't think it's pleasurable at all at any phase of it. I'm sure maybe for some people. I don't know. Never fucked around with the prostate. I've been every girl wants to talk me into it for whatever reason. It feels like
you attract a certain type.
Every long-term relationship that I've had, I feel like at some point the girl's going to want to stick a finger in my ass, and then it's going to become like a really important thing. And it's like this is just some weird challenge because I'm not interested. Like, yeah, you're not. What's your finger getting off on it? You're not getting anything from this. So why is this important to you? It's been a whole ordeal. I tried once. I got like half a knuckle of a pinky in. I hated it. It was
Did you say that in the middle of it? Hated it. Like, I'm not sure you do. Steve Hernandez has a bit about like loving butt plugs and stuff, and it was like, it's like, man, how are you not trying this? That's where your clit is. And then when people say, no, that's gay, it's like, that's not gay. A dick is gay. This is. I
don't think it's gay or anything like that. I just I have a very sensitive butthole. I hate that I have a butthole. I don't like that I have to wipe it. I don't like that it exists. I don't like that things come out of it. I don't like anything about it.
Me too. And I would sell it for like $5.
I know.
Like if so the rest of me didn't. Yeah.
Like most of the time, I just forget that I have a butthole, and then you fart. We all do it, or you shit, or whatever, and then you remember that you have a butthole, and I'm like, God damn it, I hate that I have a butthole. And most of the time, my brain's just so good at forgetting that I have a butthole. I don't need more reminders. My butthole doesn't need more stimulation, doesn't need any more touches. As we're talking about it, I'm comfortable in this chair right now, frankly. Just
I'm 100% in lockstep with your ideology here. And it's interesting seeing seeing like a toddler go through this, like I've witnessed with nephews and stuff, like how they don't want to go poop. They're just like they think that if they wait long enough, it's like I don't want to do it. They're just writhing in pain, and then it's like I know, I feel you, buddy. But yeah, this is the nature of this hell reality we're in.
Sometimes when dogs do it and it just like stays on too, and then you just gotta feel bad for them as they're trying to. Oh my gosh. Just watching dogs struggle just reminds you of the horrors of buttholes. So,
but what was the device
they
though?
Leave it
so the
in.
Device was the device. You don't know what it looked like.
I can't tell you that. No, I just know that it was far. I know the responsible thing is to have a prostate exam when a doctor tells you to have a prostate exam, and I know because guys don't have to. When it comes to men having to deal with butthole discomfort, like the world bends over backwards to like figure out solutions to our butthole discomfort. When it comes to women, it's like, oh, well, you got depression? We'll give you the pill that we only tested on male rodents and not female. Whatever. I'm sure it's all the same shit. Here's some fucking cotton to fucking jam up there to get that thing.
And here's
to
a tax
stop.
on that.
Yeah,
you have to pay tax on the cotton because it's got a pink package. Yeah, the woman tax is fucked up.
It is fucked up. So they left it in. Sure enough, everyone that had the thing, not everyone, you know, there's always, but quite predictably, people would prefer having the prostate exam where it was left up there. They didn't know. They didn't, as far as they knew, that was just the way of prostate exams. So like, if they were doing that in a modern day, you would just give someone a prostate exam and then like check your phone for a minute or two afterwards, and you're going to have a much happier patient. Yeah. Basically is the takeaway. So that's a big part of the peak end rule. But that's more, so we focused on the end more, but the peak is just more intuitive. You know, you go to an amusement park, you're going to remember your favorite part of that amusement park. You do some, like, you have a really hard day or whatever, you're going to remember the worst part of that day, like a little more than, and probably forget some of the good things that happen and whatnot.
Oh,
so
yeah.
That's
good things are the most forgettable things we forget.
Yeah. So that's the peak end rule. And so Dan, this is Dan Ariely's like early stuff, inspired by his own journey with managing pain and figuring this out. And then, but he would also, like, once he became kind of known for this, he would help other people that were, going through painful experiences in hospitals and stuff. And it became a big aspect of his study. He's just a great dude, and he's done a zillion things, but he's also, almost none of his work now has to do with pain, and it hasn't for a long time. That was just like the very start of it. And then he just branched off into all of these understanding perception generally, and especially all the quirky ways in which we spend money, and then the ways in which we lie to ourselves and others, and makes a lot of like, yeah,
not to others.
I know I don't lie. I lie to myself so much, but I have like a real, ethics and morality when it comes to lying to others. I'm like, I have to be honest with myself. It's just because who's the referee? Like, I'm the referee. I'm the judge. You can make so many allowances for things. You have little cheats. You have like, I'm only going to do this at certain things. And who else is looking? It's just you. And by the way, you're going to be better tomorrow or next year anyway. So why not indulge a little bit today?
I'm going to be sharper and richer in the future. Wrong, dumb, less bank account.
Exactly. So that's a ton of his work. So he does a lot of stuff on motivation and intrinsic motivation versus external motivations, the things that like drive us internally, that inspire us, versus just getting a paycheck for something. And I don't even know what stuff of his to talk about first, because he just has so much amazing stuff. So I'll just start going. But did you watch rather the video that I sent you by chance? I haven't seen it. Like the morality. It's fine if you didn't. We send each other texts all the time with various
I'm just
things.
Looking at the thumbnail of it, so I remember which one. Because I watched some other ones, not the one you recommended, but also I had seen the one you recommended. That's not it. That's Stacy's mom. I don't know why these are here. And now it's
because
Dead
we
Air
talked
Bear.
about we talked about postmodern jukebox with the Desert Honey.
Oh yes. Where is it? No, let's go into
fine.
it, and then if I don't remember, I'll lie about it.
It doesn't matter at all. It's almost better that you didn't watch it.
Then in that case, I watched it twice.
So I don't remember Predictably Irrational. Not that it wasn't memorable. It's just the work in it is so Predictably Irrational hits so many of the big like behavioral economics studies that are used over and over again that I don't remember which was in that book and which was in like various other books that I've read. But his honest truth about dishonesty is really interesting. And you can kind of see the arc of his work and how he then applied that to how we spend money in the stories that we tell ourselves. So he is the master of doing insanely cheap studies that reveal a lot. So you have like, various undergrads and stuff come in for a study for like pretty cheap. And you pay them very little for these studies and everything. And so of all the things in science that take all so much funding to do this or that, to figure out some new compound or whatever, his budget on some of these studies is insane because it's just like so simple and it gets down to the bottom of life. And so one of his things is he'll prime people to cheat in various scenarios. So what he'll do is you take like this grid test. There's a matrices. There's like 10 questions or something like that. And he knows that in 10 minutes, the average person can answer 6 of them. Some people answer like 5. Some people answer 7 or 8 or something like that.
But never then, 10.
Yeah. And then you have people then you prime people in a bunch of different conditions to see how honest people will be about it. So one is you just have people self-grade their own test. And so when you know the average is 6 and then the average that people turn in is a 7, then you know almost everyone is kind of bumping up their score a little bit. And you find out when you talk to people afterwards that usually it's like, well, I was going to put C for this one, but I switched my mind to B. And so when we self-graded and it was C, I just like changed it back to C because that's what I thought originally. Like I knew that. I just marked the wrong thing. So we just tell ourselves the story about why it was right to lie on a thing.
Yeah, I would do that.
Yeah. And so they have all these conditions where they'll like take a paper shredder and they'll have people like, hey, when you're done with the test, just turn it in here and put it in the shredder and then tell us what your score is. And we give you like $5 for every right answer that you had or whatever. And they were expecting people to be like, I got a perfect 10 or whatever. And that's not what people do, but people do lie. People give themselves an extra 1 or an extra 2. So they'll give themselves a 7 or an 8. Some people will be like, I got a 10. See you, sucker.
I'd be walking out of there with $50 for sure.
Yeah. But the thing is, in the paper shredder, it's a fake paper shredder, and it keeps.
I guess
it's just a scanner instead. It just scans what their results are instead of shredding it. So it's like for the cost of a paper shredder, you're like getting down to the bottom of all of these really interesting things.
That's the opposite of one. It not only doesn't destroy it, it makes a digital version of it. It replicates it.
Yeah. And so you can prime that in a bunch of ways. But here's what's really interesting. If you have people So it's like, oh, okay, so these people are lying, but they're actually lying to themselves much more than lying to you in a way, which is that if you ask people, you go, okay, test number 2, it's the exact same amount of challenging test or whatever. The average score is the exact same, and you get paid based on a mix of what you score and what you estimated that you'll score. How many do you think you will score on this? And if you're like more accurate in your estimation, you get more of a reward. And
wouldn't people tank it then?
Well, they also get paid for each correct answer, but in addition to that, right, they get a bonus for, and so they so the people that said that the people that got a 6, they actually got a 6. The scanner shows that. They told them that they got a 7 or an 8. Whatever they told them, that's what they also guessed that they would get on the next test. So they're lying to them, like they believed it themselves, because they're telling, again, that story, which I kind of like probably spoiled a little bit ahead of time in my order in which I should be telling this stuff, is that people are telling themselves the story of like, oh, I knew that. I would get that next time. Therefore, I deserve that thing. So the main thrust of his book is like, if all of the pens go missing in an office, it's not because there's a pen bandit. It's because everyone took a pen or whatever. And then you look at
it's
the
not
ways
Lee Harvey
in which...
Oswald, it's the FBI.
That's not the right comparison. Usually your metaphors are right on, but that one missed the mark. And
unlike Lee Harvey Oswald.
And so if the idea is you can, there's certain conditions in which people will cheat a lot more. So if you were to say there was like a box full of money around the office or something like that, and someone took a dime or a dollar out of it or whatever, that would be considered stealing. But if someone takes a pen that's worth a dime or a dollar, it's like, well, that's just, it's around the office. That's just, everyone does it. So it's just kind of okay. This bleeds into downloading music illegally back when that was a thing. And now we just stream and kind of pouring, and it just becomes like kind of socially acceptable of like, oh, we all do it. So it's an okay thing to do. And he did he did a bunch of studies that now I'm not remembering, that are like, he would have a vending machine give incorrect change that was,
oh, I remember this one. Yeah.
Too much. Do you?
Well, I remember
the exactly how it went.
No, I don't remember the conclusion of it, but I do remember the vending machine that gives incorrect change.
Yeah. And so so that bleeds into how we spend money, which is we kind of tell ourselves a bunch of different stories about how we spend money. And there's a lot of categorization that we do, whereas like a lot of his point is a dollar is a dollar is a dollar is a dollar from an economist perspective. But our mental accounting works way differently than that. We have a food account. We have a fun account. We have a bills account. And then we sort of like negotiate with ourselves and tease and borrow. And there's all these factors like swiping credit cards is easier because you're not handing over the cash necessarily.
Yeah. The chip I've noticed, like swiping a card for a grocery bill, let's say you're paying like $70 or something like that, versus, I mean, the amount doesn't even matter. I don't know why I brought that up. The chip, if you're using a chip, it's like oh, cool. I got it for free. I didn't even have to swipe my card. I just put my chip on top of it and then it made the little ding sound. But it's not free.
Yeah, but you don't have to pay till later, and you're going to be doing better financially later anyway. So what's it going to matter?
Yeah.
Once you're broke right now, but like 3 weeks from now, when you accrue all that wealth from that hard work you're going to be doing tomorrow or next week, you'll pay that off, no problem.
Future me will take care of it.
Yeah. So tons of work like that, and we can really explore that a bunch in the future. And then he does a lot of so maybe we'll dedicate more of a full episode just to those concepts specifically and certain priming, because there's all sorts of weird, like one of the studies that came to mind that he figured out was there was some newspaper subscription that he worked on. He works with various businesses, and he figured out that he gave this he did this study and figured out that people would pay, it's like $60 for an online subscription to a newspaper, or $120 for a physical version of the newspaper, or $120 for a physical and digital subscription to the paper. And what do you think most people picked?
Most people, so it's for a year or something, like a subscription
it's like
for, let's say, a year. So digital is 60 for a year, 120 is physical for a year, and then both is 120.
Yeah.
I think people picked the regular physical one.
No one picked that. Everyone picked
they picked the digital
and physical. No, everyone picked the digital and physical. And then, and because no one picked just the physical, because why would you? Because you also get the digital one as well. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it comes free with the other one. Yeah.
Yeah. But the interesting thing was then when he got rid of the inferior option, he got rid of the just physical for 120, and it was 120 for physical and digital versus 60 for the digital. Then what do you think people picked?
Then people switched to pure digital. And so it's like, we're always trying to figure out the frame. We don't have a frame of reference for what things are supposed to cost. So by adding, he figured out that just by adding like ridiculous options, that it would prime people into thinking they were getting bargains on things that they otherwise wouldn't be. Yeah. This is somewhat related, maybe not exactly in line with it, but I used to have a haggle button on my website. I took it away because I got tired of having to answer questions and stuff. I have too many emails and things right now, but it was fun to like this thing is $20, but show me what you got. Like, what can you afford? 10, 5 plus a song or something. And a lot of people just the fact that there was a haggle button, or like with our Patreon, the fact that we have a lunatic option, and then the 200 tier doesn't seem as high now that there's a $10,000 one.
Yeah.
Just interesting price. Have we talked about the double? Someone was trying to sell this jewelry that they had too much of, and they told one of the employees to mark it as 50% off, and they accidentally wrote it in a way that it was 2x instead of save half off. It was doubled in price, and it sold out the same day because people saw that the price doubled and were like, oh shit, we better get this now.
That's really interesting, because the price is going up. So this is a scarce commodity with a lot of value. Yeah, that's one of the big anecdotes. Similarly as JCPenny, it's a big reason why JCPenny went under. Was there was
it's gone now? Didn't even notice.
I think it still exists in some regions, but
Just
malls and
commercials.
stuff are going away. But
There's
it
no
was,
more
when I was
physical
a kid, it was
JCPenny.
a JCPenny catalog. That's what I would look through to circle the presents that I wanted for Christmas. And I'd sneak a peek at the lingerie section too while I was there. And it was a whole thing. And what happened was so JCPenny their whole game was they were basically the same price as anyone else, but they would just increase what they said the retail price was by like 40%. And then they'd be like, everything's 40% off this week. And people would go crazy. So you're paying the same price ultimately as anything else. But it felt like 40% off because you don't know what, for a $60 shirt, you don't know what makes a shirt worth $60 necessarily, you know?
I don't think I've ever had a $60 shirt.
Oh, I've had far more expensive shirts than that. I bet this is like over $100 shirt right here. And I don't know what makes it be that. But I mean, it looks good. I know I trust my taste, but it's probably not worth whatever I paid for it. So we don't have a good frame of reference, but if it's like 40% off, it feels like you really got a bargain. And one day a new CEO came into JCPenny and he's like, you know what? We're going to have a more honest relationship with our customers. And they had this fair and honest pricing where there are no more sales, just everything costs what it costs, and it's competitive with everyone else around.
You're making a mistake.
They lost like nearly $1 billion that year.
In a second, probably. Like I'm taking business away from them just hearing about this, and that's already happened in the past.
Yeah.
I'm like retroactively making them go even more bankrupt just by hearing that.
Yeah.
You want to lie in a way that makes people feel good, like they're pulling a fast one on you.
Mm-hmm.
They should do that at grocery stores where like accidentally, like they should make everything a little more expensive, but hire cashiers that like don't scan the thing properly and then put it in. So it's like the cashiers here sometimes slip. Every time I go, they don't scan something in. So I end up saving like $20.
That's not a bad idea.
Yeah, but it's built into the price.
Yeah. The slippery grocery store.
Yes.
Have you been to Slippery's? I swear the fucking cashiers there, slippery as fuck. They'll just, I don't know, if you just spark up a nice conversation with them, they'll just not scan a couple items. I love that. So then just to give like a little more of an overview, he does a ton of stuff on kind of what motivates us and a lot of things about how, like Wikipedia and lots of other companies were built in people's downtime. And so he goes to businesses and kind of usually introduces ideas of just why not have one day each week where just there's no bad ideas. Everyone can just bring in whatever they have. They get to work. This was, what was it? Maybe Zappos or some company introduced this, and I think he primed it, where once a week people could work on whatever they wanted to rather than doing their regular job. They could work on whatever they wanted to, but at the end of the day, they would have to show people what they were working on. And that day ended up being like the most productive day all of the time because people got to work on their pet projects and stuff and the things that they cared about a bunch. And so a bunch of stuff like that. Some of the fun things that they did was they would have people building like Lego set things, and then you'd come in and be like, we'll give you like $7 to build a Lego set, and they'd finish and be like, do you want $620 to build another one. I'm like, okay, I'll build another one because, you know, Legos are kind of fun. It's not much money, but whatever. It's kind of fun to do. How do you want like $570? And they just keep on dropping it by whatever, 30, 60 cents or something like that until eventually people would stop. But if you just ask people if they wanted to build another Lego set, they wouldn't do that. And then they figured out like various conditions where people would stop. And one was the Sisyphean condition, which is a bunch of different ways. After you're done, the experimenter just starts disassembling it right in front of you. All of your work for naught, and people fucking cannot stand that.
That's fun with toddlers. But I mean, I think because, you know, going in and it's not Legos, but, you know, the classic game of build block tower, and then the toddler is going to come smash it before you're even done building it. And if they're really good, they'll wait until it's smash time, and it's like, okay, now smash. But with Legos, you felt like you built something like good, and part of your soul went into it. But that's got to be so fun to smash the Lego set in front of them for $620.
Yeah, but if you did it the other way and smashed the toddler's Lego set, they wouldn't be as happy about it, you know.
Yeah,
and it is also things need to be people's own ideas. They need to be thinking that they're making the decision on their own. They can't be forced to do this thing. It needs to be their choice, or it needs to be felt as if it's their choice. And then there's other conditions. So this is where like the IKEA effect comes from, which is they had people make a bunch of swans.
Oh, swans.
A bunch of what do you call those things? The paper
cranes?
swan. Yeah, what's the
origami?
Origami. Yeah, you have them make origami swans. And you have a bunch of different conditions. After they've made the origami swans, you offer to sell them to them. Like, well, we're keeping these, but if you want, on the way out of the study, you can buy your origami swan. And then they would also offer the origami swan someone else had made to other people. And people would pay like nothing for an origami swan that someone else made. But if you made the origami swan, you would pay to get to leave with that. And
would they give the money up front and it's taking it out of the money you already got, or people would come in with money and leave a psychological experiment $5 poorer because they wanted the swan they made?
Money they got from the experiment.
Okay.
They would leave. But I think there's a few different conditions. And then they would make the directions harder to understand. And the more difficult the directions were, which led to crappier swans, the more people loved their swan and wanted to take it home. It was more challenging. They had to figure it out on their own. And that's why it's called the IKEA effect. We have a fondness for the furniture that we built and figured out ourselves. I have this rack here that I just picked up at Target because there wasn't any closet, like bars or anything here. It's an unfinished house that I'm in for the most part. And so I just got some simple stuff to put together quick. And I was just having a heck of a time with like one aspect of it that was just not making sense. And I'm like, what a piece of junk. Why is it built like this? This thing's sliding. And then I just saw like this one spacer that I had missed that I wasn't putting in the particular component. And when I figured that out, I put it all together. I was like, yes, I built this piece of shit shelf with 2 bars between 2 cheap shelves. And had I not struggled to figure out that thing from simple instructions that I just didn't pay enough attention to, I probably wouldn't like this as much.
No, that's what gives it its personality. And I think of what what do people that actually build houses, what is that experience like to understand? Not that they're physically putting it all in, but if you're one of those people you're a contractor that knows the electrical setup, knows where it could have been done a little better here, knows where the foundation's a little weak here, the drywall, like, that part was kind of screwed up, but no one will ever know. But you're like, I know it with little fixtures around here, but I know nothing about the electricity or drywall or plumbing in the house, insulation.
He uses an anecdote about that in one of his last books. I think it's something or other to do with motivation. I don't remember the name of the book, and we got to wrap up in a minute. But yeah, he had a contractor come to his house, and he made the observation, like, it wasn't the best contractor. He took a long time. It wasn't the best job. And then he had one project where he was putting in a sauna, and he wanted it handmade. And like he had these design ideas and worked on the design ideas with the contractor. And the contractor just loved making this thing and was like so excited and brought his own ideas into it and was like so proud and showed him every piece and like what he did there. And here were his ideas here. And the idea is like, well, everything else was already existing, and he was just making a slight improvement, like putting slightly better windows in or something. And you don't like feel it, you don't see the end result, but building a sauna that's custom made, that's never been made before, and figuring out how to do that, it primes that intrinsic motivation.
And then the rest of the house collapses on the sauna because he did a shitty job with the rest of it.
But if you're in the sauna, you'll be safe because the sauna's reinforced very well and built correctly. So the rest of the house can collapse.
Like the black box joke from like 80s stand-up. I clicked on a random 80s stand-up thing, and I can't believe I found the actual bit. I know hundreds of people have done the bit, but I saw an actual video of, I think it was Brad Garrett going like, whenever the plane crashes, everyone's dead and the plane's gone, but the black box survives. Why don't they make the whole plane out of the black box? And I found the
people
actual...
go ape shit?
Yeah.
Like the first time they heard that, I bet they went crazy.
In the 80s, all you had to do is just wear a red shirt and say, how you doing? It was like, you'd kill it.
Guys, that's the end of this show, and we'll expand on Dan's work and related topics a bunch in the future because it's expansive. But you can come to the Campout Festival in Raleigh, September 9th through 11th, camping till the 12th, Thursday, Patreon Day, if you want to come and have a more intimate experience with the boys. And Dan's going to be there. There's going to be a whole bunch of folks. Herman Poncer talking about the evolution of festivals from hunter-gatherer to today. Stephen Churchill with the fossil display. Marty Hazelton. Jeff Larson talking about cognitive biases. Keith Markman talking about the psychology of conspiracy theories. Favorite subject of mine. Cole Marta talking about psychedelic therapy. Sophia Rockland talking about her book, When Plants Dream, all about ayahuasca. Peter McGraw talking about solo traveling. Whole bunch more people being booked soon. We got music from Desert Honey, as you heard. Unica Prong, as you heard. No, you haven't heard yet. We'll play it in the future. The Right Ave, Slick Mahoney's. Julia, that you heard at the beginning. Grace Elliott, Duck. A whole bunch more being booked. So check it out. Please support us on Patreon. If you have it in your heart to write a review, this is the festival. If you're like, oh, I can't make it, well, this is our big push to make this first year a success, to also build more of a following for this podcast and to be able to do it in more regions and things eventually. So anything that you can do in terms of Patreon support and stuff is both desperately needed and very much appreciated. So stop telling yourself this little story that it's okay to not support us on Patreon because
It's
enough
not.
people will, and you will next month or whatever. Come on, support your boys because we have a bunch of awesome content, and you'll get free bonus episodes. You got anything to add, Ramin? Otherwise, I'm gonna finish this outro.
The Patreon, the 5 stars, the review, the like,
got it.
share, subscribe, the thumbs up, the comment.
Clip it and ship it.
Clip it and ship it.
Rebecca Todd is going to be, she's probably the most, everyone's very excited around here when they hear Rebecca Todd on the lineup. She is very talented. We're going to outro with her song Can't Sleep because Ramin and I are recording this at night, so why not? And very talented musician. And until next time,
keep on salivating, honeys.
Let's talk about how I can't sleep at night. Whenever I'm at home. Yeah. Let's talk about how I can't sleep at night. Yeah. Lying in my cozy bed at home. The only time I get any good sleep, talking about that good sleep, it's when I'm